returned from a 10-day Vipassana retreat in the Theravadan Buddhist tradition. So there's basically three big branches of Buddhism: the Theravada, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. And Zen is in the Mahayana, and Theravada uses more the original, what are called the original teachings of the Buddha, which were written down 500 years after his death, but are said to be his original sermons that were passed orally from disciple to disciple, from student to student for 500 years and then written down. And then Buddhism went to China, and the Mahayana tradition developed. Buddhism went to Tibet, and the Vajrayana tradition developed. And they all have the same basic premise of directing our heart minds towards the present moment experience for the reason of liberation from suffering. And what suffering is, that's a good question. It's a good question for us to investigate in our own life. And according to the Theravadan tradition, and of course you find this also in the Mahayana and Vajrayana tradition, that suffering or dissatisfaction, any kind of dissatisfaction that we experience in our life, be it nervousness or stress or irritation or anger or just any sense that something's wrong, it comes from this tendency that we have to crave things and push things away. This kind of push and pull tendency that we have. To want things that aren't present and to not want things that are present. And the whole Buddhist path is to help us to unravel this tendency that we have to crave, to cling, to attach, to seek something other than what is, and to push away, to resist, to not want, to get irritated by what is, and to find a sense of peace with reality. So that's why the emphasis is so much on bringing the attention to the present moment experience, because that's where we can meet reality and we can find this possibility, we can investigate this possibility of what is this stress, what is this irritation, what is this clinging, this craving. And as the Buddha said, this is possible. It is possible for this to fall away, to be released, to wear itself out. And the path to do that is through what are called the threefold trainings often, or sometimes they're called the 3 legs to the stool of practice. And these are, I'm going to call them right now, right living, directly touching reality, and equanimity. So the traditional words are sila, samadhi, and prajna, if you're familiar with those. And they're translated as ethics, right living. Samadhi, which is absorption, concentration, and focus in the present moment. And I'm calling that directly touching reality. The reality of this moment. Hearing that sound. The touch of our skin. The feeling of our breath. And equality, this is prajna. Prajna is wisdom. And one really important aspect of wisdom, or maybe all of wisdom, is actually being able to accept and live and embody this peace that's free from wanting and not wanting. So it's, another word for equality is equanimity. Can people hear me? Okay, I'll try to talk loud. It's not my natural way to talk loud, but I'll try. Yeah. We're going to get a mic in here soon. So this is a very Theravadan view. And of course we find it in Mahayana and we find it in Vajrayana. But it's a very Theravadan view. It's very scientific. It's very logical, and the practice is also very scientific and very logical. So this retreat I just got back from is very, very step by step. Sometimes you hear, or I've heard, actually once I've heard, and I thought this was really wonderful, that Theravada Buddhism is the science of Buddhism, and Zen Buddhism is the art of Buddhism. So in Zen you find a lot more poetry, a lot more koan, more mystery. Not so sure about the linear path of freedom from liberation. And they're both, I find that they're both important to really have a full practice life and a full understanding of the Dharma. The Dharma are the teachings that lead to liberation, and also the Dharma is the truth, and the Dharma is the path. Another meaning of Dharma is the law. So the law of reality, how things are. How things are, that's the Dharma. So here we're practicing the Dharma of reality. And we are using these three tools, you could say. So the first tool, so this is the path of Sila, Samadhi, and Passion, the path of right living, directly touching reality, and equality, equanimity. So right living is living a healthy life, a good life. Is living a life in the precepts, so not killing, not stealing, not expressing anger. So maybe somebody might feel angry at the dog, right? But one of the precepts is we don't unleash that anger. We don't yell at the dog, or we don't yell at our friend on the dog. We feel that anger and we investigate its nature. Also, the precepts are not talking bad about others, not criticizing others, not criticizing ourselves also is part of Sila, is part of right living. Not abusing intoxicants. So if we take what we call an intoxicant, we don't take actually an intoxicant, something that is toxic to the body. We have to be really aware of when something is toxic. An intoxicant can be what we normally call a drug or alcohol, and it can also be entertainment. It can also be Netflix. It can also be Instagram. This is an intoxicant. It can also be excessive idle talking, or anything that feels toxic for the system, for the body, for the heart, for the mind. And so what we normally call drugs, you might say, in some cases can be medicines. As we know, there's a fine line between a drug and a medicine. Not misusing sexuality is another of the precepts. And not criticizing others and putting ourselves up. We do this in really subtle ways if you watch, we say. We point out errors of others, sometimes very obviously. Maybe we're talking to a friend and we're like, I can't believe they did that. Or to ourselves, we're criticizing others, and by criticizing others, we're taking this arrogant position where I know I'm better. I wouldn't do that. And we can also do it in a very, very subtle way, like when we ask somebody, why'd you leave the keys there? You know, or the more we train the mind to be present and to be aware, the more we can closely watch which things are subtly harmful for ourselves and for others. When I spend this many hours doing this thing, what result does it have? How then do I feel afterwards? Also, this to-do mind, this is also very common in our culture. Like, I have to get this done, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. And we are, what precept would it be we can investigate? That is, we're subtly sort of killing the moment, you might say. We're killing the moment because we have this imagined view of how life should be, all the things we have to get done in order for life to be the right way, and then we ignore actually what happens. So an example of this, I was thinking about this talk, and I was like, I gotta get this talk done, right? Or the encouraging words we send in the newsletter. That was what it was. And Samaya, my dog, comes up to me, going in the backyard. She wants a little love, right, in that moment. And I could just sort of kill that. I could reject that. I could subtly close my heart to that in order for this thing that I think that I need to get done. And so there's this way in which we can learn to trust that things will get done, and then we can live our sila, we can live our right life, our beautiful life, our good life that we know, each of us knows, like the right way to live in each moment, to treat other beings, to treat ourselves, the activities that bring benefit and the activities that bring harm. And so when we create this environment of sila, this environment of right living, right thinking, right speech, right action, which just is another way of saying beneficial speech, beneficial action, then we have this ground in which we can build our samadhi, our presence, practice. Because if we're constantly doing things that are subtly harmful to ourselves and others, or grossly harmful, like yelling at somebody or stealing something, or really gossiping, like totally criticizing somebody, which we all do from time to time. We forgive ourselves and we move on. But when we do that, we sit down to concentrate, or we go to take a walk and we can't be present. Our mind is just, it's agitated, right? So the cultivation of the ground of right living, of sila, this then allows allows the whole system to relax. We feel like we're living in a beneficial way. And we can, as then samadhi deepens, we can get more and more subtly aware of the subtle things, like that moment that I just turn away from my dog. You know, it's so small, but it really is everything in that moment. And then we sit down and we can actually be. And we can start this process of training the heart mind, which in our culture is not supported. This is a radical practice. My first teacher always used to say, this is so radical. To just sit down and not do anything, not accomplish anything, not be anything, not seek anything, not want anything, not reject anything. It's like so counter-cultural. And it can go so deep. So I just got back from these 10 days. So we sat for 10 hours a day, being as present as possible for 10 hours a day. First following the breath, and then feeling the sensations in the body. If anyone's ever went to a Goenka Vipassana retreat, that's what this was. They're very popular. For often people do this their first retreat, and it's so intense for a first retreat, but totally profound. So if you feel drawn to it, I recommend just do it. And they're available everywhere, and they're free. And then you give a donation at the end, whatever you can afford. So this is one side note is to say that retreat practice is really essential in developing samadhi. Are you smiling?
I just registered for one.
You did! Alright, here's your confirmation. Yeah, so I just returned this morning from yeah. So then we can start to cultivate this samadhi, and ordinarily, most of us, we don't know the potential of our samadhi. I did not know, and I still probably don't know. 10 years from now, I'll be like, whoa, I wasn't even touching the depth of the possibility for full emergence in the present moment. So far beyond all this whole story of what we think is going on. There's this depth of presence that, we touch maybe just, or maybe we've had a full, some people have had just a full falling into that just spontaneously. If we're lucky, we get that. Or we touch it in deep sleep or in dream. One thing that brought Sota into practice was he had these dreams of deep presence, and they inspired him to wow, there's something else, there's some potential possibility. So we start though, like I was talking earlier, it's like touch and go. It's touch and go. We bring our mind to the present, we're back thinking about what happened. We bring our mind to the present, we're back thinking about what will happen. Bring our mind to the present. It's really important to establish touching reality, samadhi, to have a specific practice that we do. So most people start with the breath, and it may not be that you feel drawn to the breath. If you need help developing a samadhi practice or picking a practice, you can also come see us in Sanzen, and you can ask us about that. And it's little by little. Retreat is really the way to really dive into that. Even a one-day retreat. And of course, sitting daily, sitting once a week, if you can, we can start to cultivate that. But you want to have a specific practice, so often the breath is that practice. And so let's just take a moment, you can close the eyes, and let's start by bringing the sensations to the feeling of the air going in and out of the nostrils. So see if you can feel the touch of the air in the nostrils, maybe the temperature. It's very subtle. Okay, now you can bring your attention to the chest area. And you can see if you can feel the rise and fall of the breath there. Maybe you can feel the touch of the clothing on the chest. The gentle expansion and contraction of the lungs. And then bring the attention down to the abdomen. The same there, you can feel the expansion and contraction, perhaps of the abdomen. Some people like, especially if they're having trouble feeling it, is to bring the hand to feel the abdomen, or you can do this with the chest. And you can actually feel the movement. You can try this. You can feel the movement of the abdomen expanding and retracting, sinking. You might feel other sensations there, and the more you pay attention, the thing about samadhi is the more you pay attention, the subtler your perception becomes. So you start to feel little things, even maybe like what you might call the vibration of skin. Of course, you can also feel the emotions this way. You could open the eyes if you want, or you could keep them closed. You can feel the emotions this way. You can listen to sound this way. So for a moment, just open the sound field. What is the subtlest sound you can hear? What is the most obvious sound you hear? So any of the sense gates can be an object for samadhi practice. Eventually, even thought can be an object for samadhi practice. But that's really tricky, especially in the early years of developing samadhi, because you just get pulled into it. You can't stay back and observe the thought. So it's good to pick the 5 senses: the sound, the taste, the touch, the smell. What's the other one? The sight. That's also kind of a tricky one, but you can do it with color. There's this practice in Theravada Buddhism. You have a kasina disc. It's a circle, a colored circle. I think George has been doing this practice a little bit, maybe a lot, I don't know. And you put it in front of you, or you put it on a wall, and that circle is your samadhi practice, is your touch point for reality. So this is an essential aspect of practice, and it builds the ground. Let me just finish that one thought of Sanzen. We're going to start next week changing the format. We'll explain it at the end of Sunday program, and it will include an option to go for private meditation interview Sanzen with myself or Soten, so you can check in about the details of your practice if you'd like. So that can be really helpful to have the guidance of a teacher to help you develop this, all the aspects. And Mushin is available for Sanzen on Saturday mornings if you'd like to meet for her. She's a little more popular, so if you definitely need to be a member to get into Sanzen with her. And just
Maybe.
Yeah. If you really want to practice, you with a certain teacher, you have to be diligent. And we are, of course, not the only teachers in Corvallis, or of course, there's so many Dharma teachers in the world. And so you might find one you really resonate with. And if you really want to do it in your Dharma practice, it's really good to work with a teacher. It's really so. This ground of samadhi then paves the way for prajna, which is wisdom, which is the direct observation of reality, of how things are. And I'm calling this the equality. So, as we deepen in our samadhi practice, we start to see that how pervasive this subtle clinging and aversion is. This subtle, I don't want, how we just can't rest in the present moment. We're always a little agitated. There might be moments, right? But as we get more and more aware, we see this. The Buddha called it dukkha, and dukkha literally means friction. So there's the reality of how things are, and there's the reality of how we think they should be. Pleasurable, beautiful, easy, bright, happy, whatever. We all have our own different kind of version, but it's some version of pleasure. We always want pleasure. We never want pain. And so we see this. And we also see, these are called the three marks of existence in Buddhist teaching. Dukkha, anicca, and anatta. So dukkha is this friction. Anicca is we see that actually everything is constantly changing. It's impermanent. Anicca is often translated as impermanence. So it's never possible, actually, to be all pleasant or all painful. It's always shifting. It's always moving. At the subtlest subatomic level, they find us in science. And also at the grossest, we grow old, we die, we get sick, our loved ones die, everything. There's the 5 remembrances in Buddhism. I will get sick, I will age, I will die, I will be separated from everyone and everything I love. They will all die. And my deeds are the ground on which I stand. This is the 5th remembrance. It's a little different in a way, but it's speaking to this, how it changes is based on how we act, our sila. And also, there's something else there that is not quite clear to me right now, so I'm giving you my best understanding of these at the moment, right? So I've been practicing these trainings for years, and I have my understanding. And this is an intellectual understanding that I'm sharing with you to try to point you towards direct understanding. So intellectual understanding of anicca is very easy to understand, easy to accept. Of course, everything changes, right? The tree is a seed, then it becomes a sprout, then it becomes a tree, then it bears fruit, then it gets old, then it cuts down or falls over, then it becomes hummus. Everything is like that. It's intellectually obvious. Also, dukkha. Of course, when we want things we don't have, and we don't want things that we do have, we're going to feel dissatisfied. It's logically obvious. But to actually, so there's 3 kinds of wisdom that the Buddha taught. There's wisdom that you hear, and that you can just accept. So here's like a common example, a mundane example. Somebody tells you there's a pie in the kitchen. There's a pie in the kitchen. They tell you this is one kind of truth that you can accept, wisdom you can accept, the wisdom of somebody else, they tell you. So the reality is anicca, dukkha, and anatta, which is no self. There's no permanent abiding self. It's just this constant change. So he can tell you that, right? Then you can say, okay, that's logically true. If everything is constant change, where is there something that's permanent? So all these we can intellectually understand. So it's the pie in the kitchen. I tell you it's there. But then you're intellectually like, I came in the door, I didn't smell a pie, I was here all day, perhaps. I did not see butter, I did not see eggs, I did not see flour. I didn't, I was the greeter, maybe your daigyo. You were there the whole time, there was no pie. So intellectually, it doesn't actually make sense. Or, oh yeah, I saw, or you didn't see, but you heard daigyo was going to make the pie, or whatever, so you can intellectually, yeah, I know that he makes pies every second Sunday of the month, and it intellectually makes sense. The third kind of wisdom is direct wisdom. Directly see for yourself. So the Buddha would often say, come and see for yourself. I tell you this, and there's actually one word in Pali, it's what is it? Ehipasika. Ehipasiko. Something I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but ehipasiko, it means come and look for yourself. It's beautiful that these traditions that developed in Buddhism and Tibet, Buddhism is like this too, they have words for very specific things. So to say, you should wrap up, it's the clock. So they have words for very specific things that we don't have. So this other word that I learned during this retreat is sanya. Sanya is the image that we hold of something. So I said pie, you have an image of pie. It's different from the actual reality of pie. That's the sanya of the pie appearing in the mind. But then you go in there and you see the pie. Okay, I see the pie. Then you eat the pie. That's a whole nother level, right? You actually taste the pie. So this is what the Dharma practice is calling us to actually taste for ourselves these truths. So this truth of equality, meaning that the Buddha said that this, when we clearly see the impermanence, when we clearly see that there's no abiding self, that everything is just this constant flow of a river of change, there's nothing that can be held on to. Nothing. No abiding, permanent anything. Then this clinging, this grasping, this aversion, this constant push and pull can stop, can cease. And we can live a life of equality, of equanimity, where we receive, actually in an embodied way, whatever it is that appears inside or outside. This is a very profound possibility of living reality, moment by moment, without any trace of this should not be. It's everything completely accepted. Not even accepted, just as it is. This is the word, this is another word I learned in Pali. There's a word for as it is. It's like yata bhuta. Yata bhuta. As it is. And so this is how we practice as it is. Eventually we open that gate little by little, often, and sometimes completely. And this is what it means to be a Buddha. To be Buddha is to be one that has completely released this tendency to grasp. This doesn't mean we don't change. Actually, we don't act. We act. Then sila really comes alive, because we can act without fear, because we can act without wanting something from this person, wanting for something from this body. We can act with genuine compassion, presence. there you go. That's a little taste of Theravadan, very linear, very well logical, very sensical Dharma teaching. And yeah, very important to understand this view and to investigate it in your own life. This dukkha, this anicca, this anatta, this clinging, craving, seeking, this constant change, and this no self, it's often translated, no self, there's no self. Wow, what, no self? Really? What, is that true? And so we have to do sila, we have to do samadhi, so that we can really start looking. We can do them all at the same time. It's not like we have to do them all at the same time. They all mutually support. I want to read you one Mahayana. I just have one thing to close, okay? So this is a Mahayana teaching. And for those of you who are maybe new to these different schools of Buddhism, or even if you're not, they have a very different flavor. So in this teaching, it touches on sila, on samadhi, and on prajna. Touching reality, presence, and right livelihood. So he says, Buddha enumerated 5 hedonist crimes. So this is from the Pali Canon. Don't kill your mother. These are like the worst things you can do. Kill your mother, don't kill your father. Don't kill a monastic. Don't kill a Buddha. And don't split up the community. So these are like the 5 worst things. Anyone committing such crimes creates the karma to be born in the Avicii hell, the 8th of the 8 hot hells, called in Chinese no space hell. Space hell. We might feel, so often these hell realms that we talk about in Buddhism, we might feel actually in our own life. Oh, I don't know space hell. Yeah, okay. So Lin Shi is a Chinese master. Actually, his name is Rinzai in Japanese, but Lin Shi is his original name in Chinese. It's Chinese. He says, mind is born, and every sort of dharma is born. Mind is extinguished, and every sort of dharma is extinguished. When one mind is unborn, 10,000 dharmas are without fault. In this world and beyond this world, there is no Buddha, no dharma, nor is anything present, nor was anything lost. Names and phrases are not of themselves names and phrases. It's only you in the present, radiant and bright, receiving, understanding, and illuminating, who attach all names and phrases. Great virtuous ones, it is just by creating the 5 no-space karmas that you attain emancipation. So it's just by committing these 5 crimes that you are liberated. What? How are these 5 crimes liberation? A student asked Master Wazoo, how are things in the lineage after Linji? And he replied, 5 crimes and hearing thunder. People took this to mean that if you commit one of the 5 crimes, you'll hear thunder, because lightning's about to strike your head. But by 5 crimes, Wazoo meant the shouts and beatings, the overturnings of the monks, appropriate and inappropriate, Lin Chi's wild acts of liberation. So we get attached to this view. I am a person, I am practicing, I am going to get liberated. This is a good view. This is a helpful view. We should take this view. And we should throw it all out when the time is right, in the moment. Right now, we should throw it all out and then we should take it up again. We should do it. And we throw it all out. There's a saying, when you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. If we have an idea that that's what the Buddha is, if we have an idea that I'm this person, I'm following this path, I'm doing it wrong, I'm doing it right, we get bound by the teachings. This is the downfall, you might say, of Theravada teachings. So in Mahayana, they just hit you. They just say, you have to do all these crimes. We break apart that attachment even to the teaching. When the Vimalakirti Sutra says, when the Bodhisattva practices the 5 no-space crimes without lust or hatred, he enters the various hells without the filth of sin. So we always think we want to go to heaven and avoid hell. This is equality. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there is just what is. We enter whatever here. To kill or to destroy without lust or hatred, to love beings with perfect kindness, beyond crimes and beyond no crimes. This is liberation. Just read that last line to close. To kill, to destroy without lust or hatred, to love beings with perfect kindness, beyond crimes and beyond no crimes. This is liberation. Okay, thank you. Please practice well.
Four graceful Sattva vows can be